Welcome you all to our candidates forum. I want to do a quick purpose of this event. This event is put on by the Safe Return Project, whose mission is to end mass incarceration and to re-enfranchise those that have been disenfranchised by the criminal legal system. Safe Return Project cares about our young people affected by criminalization. We understand how powerful, transformative, and impactful it is when others decide to invest in and care about the youth in our communities. To raise Richmond youth voices, Safe Return Project is coming together to lead and engage the Contra Costa community about upcoming elections based on experience our young people have faced and learn about possible solutions directly from our candidates. We want to thank our co-sponsors, Lift Up Contra Costa, Healthy Contra Costa, who will be helping out with our chat, Contra Costa Immigrant Rights Alliance, Richmond Our Power Coalition, and Richmond Reimagine Richmond, who is also helping out with the chat and tech. Now I want to go over some ground rules for both the candidates and our participants and audience. This forum is intended to support open and respectful exchanges of ideas. This is not a candidates debate. Each candidate will have a maximum of 2 minutes to provide, 2 minutes to provide an opening statement outlining their election priorities. We will use a timer to make sure everyone has the same allotted time. The moderator will ask one question at a time and allow each candidate to speak without interruption. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer each question with a maximum of 1 minute to respond. Again, we will use a timer to make sure everyone has the same amount of time to respond. Time limits on statements, questions, and answers will be enforced by the moderator during the forum. Remember, this is a youth-led candidates forum. Aggressive, demeaning, discriminatory, or otherwise hurtful language and actions will not be tolerated from candidates or our audience members. The moderator may ask individuals acting in such a way to leave the forum. The moderator may also intervene if any of these ground rules are not followed. I will now turn it over to Carlos for introductions.
Good evening, candidates. My name is Carlos Fernandez. I'm an organizer and mentor here at the Safe Return Project. I have worked closely with the young people that are doing this, that are leading this forum, that have shown great leadership. So I'm very proud of them. And we'll start off with, the youth that'll be, they're both named Brian, but it's Brian G and Brian Gutierrez and Nelson. And I'll start off with the bios from each candidate. I'll read them out and yeah, okay. And I'll let the youth introduce themselves.
Good evening. My name is Brian Gutierrez. I'm 16 years old. I go to Richmond High, and I'm here today because I have concerns about housing, environmental justice, and food security in my community. I pass it back to Carlos. You muted.
I'll pass it to Brian Nelson.
Good evening. My name is Brian Nelson. I'm 16 years old. I go to Richmond High School, and I'm here today because I have concerns about housing, environmental justice, and food services in my community. I'll pass it back to Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Now I'll get started with each candidate's bio. I'll read them out and ask for an opening statement. First one I see here is Shawn Dunning. Good evening. Shawn Dunning has spent his life serving others, mostly in terms of helping divided groups resolve conflict and work toward common goals. Dunning was born in San Francisco, grew up in the Sierra Nevada foothills, and traveled to 49 states and over 50 countries before settling in Richmond, where he is raising 2 daughters, a seasoned consultant, facilitator, mediator, leadership coach, and trainer. Shawn has served thousands of people around the world to develop their collaborative leadership skills. He holds a BA in speech communication, minor psychology, and an MS in conflict analysis and resolution. Dunning directed the leadership and training division for the International Conflict Transformation Organization Search for Common Ground, where he developed the capacity of emerging political and civil society leaders to lead from a basis of collaborative principles. He now works independently with a variety of clients ranging from nonprofit organizations to the United States. Mr. Dunning, please make your opening statement. You got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, Brian G. and Brian N. for those statements up front. It's really a pleasure to be here. You know, this is our, I think 7th or 8th forum. We've been going at it like crazy for the last few weeks. And I got to say, I'm really looking forward to this because it's going to sound cliche, but the youth are absolutely the future. And I hope you are considering that every candidate running for mayor right now should be running for you. We should be working on holding the space in such a way that you're able to come into it and take it forward. It's time to pass the baton. And what really motivates me is thinking about the future in terms of my own children. I have 2 daughters, they're 6 and 9 years old. I'm proud to be raising them in Richmond. And after spending my entire adult life thus far, traveling the world and working with all sorts of people all over the place, I feel right at home in Richmond. And specifically, it's because we're so diverse. We have so many people from all walks of life. And I feel like after traveling the world, I see the world in Richmond. And I want that for my daughters. I want that for my neighbors. And my concern is that it really breaks my heart to see our leaders in the city working in such a way that even though they may be working toward what they really believe in, they're not, in my opinion, from my observation, truly listening to and engaging everyone. And so we're going to get into this more in the topics this evening. But you know, that's where I'm coming from. If you watch any of the forums that we've done over the last couple of weeks, you know, you can see me and my competitors talk about the different issues and whatnot. But really, first and foremost, this is about working together. There's a lot of topics, you know, environmental justice, food security, housing. These are important things. These are basic human needs for all of us. But if we're going to get to any of that, we've got to work together. And that's where I come from in my career. My story is not about wanting to grow up to be mayor someday. I'm not coming at this with political ambitions. I love my work. I'm now just feeling led to bring my work to serving my city in this way. Is that time?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I had to guess. My internal clock is off. But thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this.
Thank you. Thank you, Shawn Dunning. Next is Vice Mayor Eduardo Martinez. Vice Mayor Eduardo Martinez is a second-generation Mexican-American born in Texas. Eduardo moved to Richmond in 1993, where he taught in Richmond public elementary schools until 2010. As a teacher, he began a special physical education class for kids who had breathing issues from living near Richmond. They called themselves the Asthma Club, but Eduardo wanted to do more for the community. So he ran for city council and beat Chevron-backed candidates, despite a $3 million campaign against him and other progressive candidates. He has now served on the Richmond City Council for over 7 years and currently serves as vice mayor. As mayor, Eduardo will push for environmental and racial justice, affordable housing, and green jobs that combat climate change. His campaign takes no money from corporations, business associations, or police unions. It is truly a grassroots campaign relying on community organizations and individuals. Vice Mayor, please make your opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
As you mentioned, I retired elementary school teacher. As a school teacher, I also worked in juvenile hall. I helped set up a 7th, 8th grade self-contained classroom court school for truants, pre-expulsion students who were expelled. So I'm very familiar with how difficult our society has made it for children of color. I also worked with the Hispanic population at Downer Elementary. And I know that any success that you might have is dependent on relationships. So you need to be able to speak to people at their level, and you need to speak with them without judgment. So that's how I've had that's how I've run my office. I keep my doors open to anyone and everyone. I listen to their ideas, their concerns without judgment, and we work together to create something bigger than what they came with and bigger than what I could have imagined without their input. And that's how I want to continue working. I have worked with a lot of you because you are the community. You are our future. And if I don't have the ability to turn over what I know to you, to empower you to be the leaders that I know you are, the leaders that you're becoming.
Thank you, Eduardo Martinez, Vice Mayor. Next is Mark Wasberg. Good evening. Mark Wasberg has lived in San Pablo and Richmond for 60 years and worked in Richmond for the last 35 years as an industrial and auto mechanic. In 2004, he was involved with the activists stopping the violence here in Richmond. And for the last 18 years in the entertainment business, credits as a filmmaker, film editor, actor, and TV talk show host. Mr. Wasberg, please make your opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
You hear me now, right? Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So I graduated from Richmond High in 1975. So you know how old I am. Go Oilers. I'm really concerned about the youth that we have going on right now. Because when I was out there filming the violence, I mean, you had 16-year-olds between 16 to 25. I mean, these guys were carrying Uzis, MAC-10s, AK-47s, and I got all the proof I got on the video. If I become mayor, I have a chance to better Richmond. I'm willing to work with the youth as much as I can to promote job training programs, to get them into the trades right after high school. And because this is the most important thing you need to do now. See, back in the day, you could drop out of high school and work at a factory and retire, but those days are over. Because the most important right now is as soon as you get out of high school, work with the youth to get them into the job training programs. And then by 25, you're all ready to go and to work. See, this is what causes less crime. When a person is educated and have a job skill, I mean, it's very rare that they're going to go out and commit crime. Okay, I know that. I worked with a few young people when I was out there filming. And matter of fact, I was trying to set up a thing with Andre Shoemaker and a few others to get like an anti-violence thing going. But like I say, if you make me mayor, I said, it's really important that we could have programs to work with the youth, to get them educated. And you have to have mentors. I mean, it takes a lot to go.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Wasberg.
All right.
Next, we'll move into our question portion. Youth will ask the question, and each candidate will have two minutes to respond to each question. First, I'll pass it to Brian Gutierrez.
Safe Return Project surveyed over 100 youth in West County. We asked questions around trauma and healing, as well as mental health services. Majority of our young people have expressed the need for mental health services and holistic healing. What is your plan to address the need for mental health services and holistic healing for young people?
Hello? Who's gonna answer that?
Is
Go
this
ahead, Mr. Wasberg. You got 1 minute.
Well, like I say, you know, you have to have mentors. I mean, if you really have a mental issue, you need to get help as soon as you can. I mean, there's people out there that's willing to help you. You have law enforcement's willing to help you, mentors. You have psychologists out there, but you need to if you need a social worker, go ahead and go for it. But like I say, there's I don't know if there's a lot of young people that really have mental issues. I mean, you're young, you're ambitious, you got a lot of things ahead in life, and but like I say, if you really need help, there's resources out there to help you. And if I become mayor, I'll try everything I can to help the young people to establish themselves and get an education and learn a good job skills, so you won't have these problems. But if you do, you know, you contact your parents, tell them you need help, tell them to get a social worker. You know, law enforcement's willing out there to help you with these things. Because I remember, you know, back in the day when I was growing up as a youth, we never had any mental issues. I mean, we had problems. You know, you talk to the parents, you talk to your parents, or in some cases, we got a hold of our law enforcement. We had
That's
programs
fine.
Is that it?
That was
Next
time.
question. Along with housing, young people.
For the same question, Mr. Dunning, you have 1 minute.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah.
First question.
Safe Return Project surveyed over 100 youth in West County. We asked questions around trauma and healing, as well as mental health services. Majority of our young people have expressed the need for mental health services and holistic healing. What is your plan to address the need for mental health services and holistic healing for young people?
Great. Was that holistic healing? Gotcha. Okay. So mental health is a complicated topic in some ways and an easy topic in other ways. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all need help. And we all need to be able to ask for help. And I think, you know, in my experience, in my career in conflict resolution, I've dealt with a lot of people with a lot of different challenges from all ages. It's not just a youth challenge. And sometimes the answers are just logical, you know, it's information. We just need to figure things out. Other times it's emotional and we don't all have the same coping skills. And depending on the environment you grow up in, you might not have a great model for that. And at the end of the day, I really believe every single human being has the potential to be good and to reconcile and to make their way forward and ultimately be a positive influence on the world. But we all make mistakes too. And sometimes that's not our fault in terms of the models that we've been around. So we do need help. And it's important that that help is available to everyone. I do believe that the county, Contra Costa County, is the leader for this. Oh, and we'll talk more later. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Vice Mayor, you got 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, to begin with, we need to lessen our tendency to criminalize behaviors, situations, because the more we look at our youth, look at people as criminals, as people who are breaking the laws, the less trust that we have. We need to also focus on restorative justice. When people make mistakes, we need to work with them to find out how they got there, what happened, and to learn to forgive them for the situation that they found themselves in. We need to provide more social services, more mental health outreach. So what we need to do is work very hard at creating a culture of forgiveness, a culture of caring, a culture of hope, so that we can rise together. I really believe that our youth are our future, and we can do things to lift them up.
All right, my next question. Along with housing, young people also face the challenge of food security. Please describe an action that you will take or have taken to promote food security in the city.
Mr. Wasberg, you got 1 minute.
Do you hear me now? It's really hard to go out and it's all about education. But when you're young, you're gonna go to McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken. You're on the move all the time, and it's all about having people getting together. There's very few young people that's willing to eat salads and healthy food. But we could have a program where we could promote this stuff. And I know when I was young, we was always at McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken. We was always running around, hanging out at the restaurant, buying burgers and so forth. But we could have some type of education programs where kids are going to eat healthy, but we can't force you to eat what you want to eat. You see, that's one thing good about this country. They got health food stores that you could go to. They got other stores that sell some healthy projects. It's all about education and letting you young people know what is the right foods to eat, what's not food to eat.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Mr. Dunning. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. To talk about food security is really the same, I think, as talking about economic development and poverty and just a question of, do we all have our basic human needs met? And so if we're talking about food, and on one hand, you can talk about nutrition, but I think if I'm understanding the point of your question is, what happens if you just don't even have enough food to begin with? And a couple ways to look at that. One thing, right now here in Richmond, I live within 3 or 4 blocks of 3 different locations that actually distribute free food on a weekly basis. And I wonder sometimes if everybody who truly needs it is aware of that. And I'm aware of programs like this all over the city. So I do know that just in terms of a crisis, in terms of the emergency, if you're out of food, you need food, I do know that it's out there, but I don't know if everybody knows. And so one very practical thing would be to develop some sort of program where we can identify who really needs it and make sure they have the resources, have the information, have the access. And let's not forget that if you're in that kind of situation, it might be embarrassing to ask for it. So I think the way we approach it needs to be really sensitive and thoughtful.
Time.
Thank you for that. Vice Mayor, you got 1 minute.
Thank you. We have food deserts, and those food deserts are there for economic reasons, mainly because we have neighborhoods of color that have been redlined, and food corporations don't want to invest there. So what we need to do is to take the food economy into our own hands, and Urban Tilt is a very good example of how we do that. They've created an urban farm. They distribute free food to families. They give out plants. I've received many this year. I got a lot of tomato plants, which I grew myself. So we need to teach our people how to grow their own foods and how to share them. Economically, what I'd like to do is to revisit our city plan and come up with what I call neighborhood commercial nodes, where the city will develop nodes in every different neighborhoods that we can develop for food and things.
Thank you. Pass the Brian for the next question.
All right, next question. Have you accepted any contributions from Chevron?
This is a yes or no question that we have on here. So Mark Wasberg,
No.
Mr. Dunning,
No.
Eduardo Martinez,
Absolutely not. No.
and there's a follow-up.
Next question. What policies will you advocate for to keep kids safe from pollution?
1 minute, Mark Wasberg.
You hear me?
Yes.
Well, there's a big debate about Chevron causing asthma and the coal dust causing cancer, but actually there's not one bit of evidence that this really happened. But like I say, it's not just Richmond that's causing the pollution. It's all the other countries, Russia, China, India. You have the jet stream coming all the way around the world. And, actually, there's no way that Richmond alone could go ahead and solve the pollution problem. You close down Chevron now, you're still going to have the same pollution because it's coming from other parts of the country. But right now, Chevron's doing everything they can to go ahead and try to make the air cleaner. I look at today, there's hardly any smog. For the last almost 6 months, I've seen hardly any smog around this Bay Area. Chevron's been cleaning up their act, but we need to get the other companies to start cleaning up their act. It's not just Chevron. It's the other parts of the. Okay.
Mr. Dunning, same question. 1 minute.
Thanks for the question. As the father of 2 young children, I'm especially interested in this, and I want to make sure we actually solve the problem. There's a little bit of misinformation going on right now on social media, and just to clear it up, I was interviewed by KQED the other day, and they asked me specifically with regard to respiratory illness, what should we do about Chevron? And I said, we absolutely need to hold Chevron accountable, and let's make sure we're using science to identify all the sources of pollution. So let's be clear, that's not taking any emphasis or microscope or magnifying glass off of Chevron. It's actually broadening our eyes to consider things like road dust and pollution. 580 goes right through, asbestos dust comes off of brakes and things like that. Let me be really clear. It doesn't mean it's not Chevron. It means there's more than just Chevron. So if we truly care about our children and all of us for that matter, we ought to be taking a big look at all the sources of pollution that lead to any sort of illness or respiratory disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Vice Mayor, 1 minute.
Yeah, I use the analogy of the gun that shoots and kills people. So is the responsibility the person who shot the gun, or is it the responsibility of the person who made the rifle, or is it the responsibility of the person who made the bullet? Now, Chevron is the maker of the gun, and the pollution from all the transportation is a direct result of the products that Chevron makes. And they've created this culture where we have to use their products. So, and then they try to make us feel guilty for using their cars, which they created to use the petroleum that they make. And so even if the traffic is a major contribution, and it is, it still derives from Chevron making the products that they make. And we know that there is higher asthma, higher cancer rates around Chevron. Need I say more?
Thank you for that. I'll pass it to Brian Nelson, who have our next questions.
Brian, you're muted.
My first question is, what does public safety look to you?
Tell Mr. Wasberg you got 1 minute.
Mr. Wasberg, you have 1 minute.
Do you hear me now? You hear me? You have the Constitution right to be safe. See, this is why a Constitution allows us to have law enforcement. You have to have law enforcement because that's the #1 issue that's going on here right now in Richmond. We know for a fact that the city council defunding the police. Now they try to pass the ordinance, say the police can't have backup if there's a major riot. So we need to bring the police back because, like I said, you have the Constitutional right to be safe. That's the law, and the city council is taking your right away. We need to bring the police back so we can have safe neighborhoods, because this task force is not going to stop the criminals from doing what they're doing. That ain't going to happen. You see, I know as a young kid like you, you want to be safe going to school. You want to come home back to your families and so forth. And we know for a fact that most of the kids between 16 to 20.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mr. Dunning, you have 1 minute.
Safety is important to all of us. It's a right. We all deserve to live in a place where we belong and we feel safe and we can move around freely and not worry about ourselves. And I'm afraid that's not the case right now. And after spending 450 miles running through every single neighborhood in Richmond, if you live in Richmond, I've been in front of your house. I've talked to over 4,000 people, and I've heard from a lot of people that don't feel safe. And it's heartbreaking. And that notion of safety is more than just needing police. Yes, we do need a sufficient amount of police, but that by no means is the answer to everything. I recognize a lot of the names on the screen this evening from some very passionate people involved in the Reimagine Public Safety Task Force. A lot of work was put into that, and I'm on the record many times applauding that work. When it comes down to the decisions we make, though, we need to make sure that we do it in a way that keeps the big picture in mind. We need sufficient police and sufficient non-police. I think we're getting closer, but we got more work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Vice Mayor.
Yes,
You have 1
thank
minute.
you. All right. If you look at the numbers of police that we have and police that are allocated, you will see that for every single year, we have had more positions open. So it's not as if we're underfunding the police, because every year there's been money to hire at least 7 or more police. So when that money's there, it just sits there doing nothing. And what we did when we reallocated money was we took some of that money that was being unused and moved it over so that it could be used for public safety, for O&S, which reduces violent crime, for mental health, which enables people to react to mental health issues. So it's really a process of looking at public safety and expanding the concept from being reactive to being proactive, to try.
That's time.
Thank you. My next question is, what is your plan to bring more resources to our community and schools? Mr. Wasberg, you have 1 minute.
Well, it's going to take county, state, and federal money to bring the schools back. I mean, right now you got massive shootings at schools. People even scared to go to school nowadays without getting shot. I like to see more security at schools, and I could convince the young people that education is the key to success. And most of these young people, they're too busy out there getting into trouble, trying to be a bunch of gangbangers and stuff like that. That's not the way to live a life. It's important that you people understand something. You got to have the education you need so you be successful in life. And I like to see tons of money coming in Richmond from federal and state, so we could pay our teachers more, so we could have safe schools. You're going to have more security at schools. If you have to have metal detectors, so be it. As long as we keep the school safe and we start pumping money into the school system.
Thank you. Mr. Dunning, you have 1 minute.
When it comes to more resources for schools, it's the same. It's really connected to more resources for Richmond in general. And I would tie that initially to economic development. At the end of the day, a lot of money for our school district, which, by the way, we don't have control over the school district, but it's still a good question. And the answer really is, when we have more tax base here, when we have more businesses paying taxes, more property owners paying taxes, that goes directly to our school district and to our city. So that's a big part of it. We can also do more grant writing. There's a lot of grants available out there if we only ask for them. And then there's something else that we might not always think about, and that's just good old-fashioned community, volunteerism. Let's work on building the spirit of volunteerism, so retired folks and other people that have time are able to help out, volunteer in the schools, after schools. This connects back to some of the mental health questions. Does everyone have the resources they need, both financially and emotionally? Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, for bringing more money in, I want to establish a grants department in the city of Richmond so that we have people who are focused on looking at all the grants that are out there and picking the ones that are appropriate for the growth of our city. And I also know that we are on the verge of a transition from fossil fuels to renewables, and there's money for that. I believe that Richmond is right for that, because we have been leading, California leading the world in terms of transitioning from fossil fuels to green economy. And YouthWorks should focus on green jobs. Schools should focus on classes that prepare our youth for the new economy and for the transition that will happen. There's no doubt about it. It needs to happen in order for us.
Thank you. My last question is housing insecurity. Housing insecurity is a huge problem affecting low income and working families. We are seeing rent and eviction increase. This makes it harder for kids to focus and succeed and be influential in addressing housing. And if elected, what would you do to help decrease the number of unhoused? Mr. Wasberg, you have 1 minute.
Well, I like to see. Well, you need to be careful how you have rent control, because you don't want to destroy the real estate business. All right. Now, the bottom line is you have to get a good education so you get that good paying job, so you won't be out on the street. That's one of the keys of being homeless and being kicked out. But we have laws already from the federal and state that if you try to get evicted, you could go out and file in courts. You can make phone calls to help you so you won't be evicted. But I'd like to see HUD expand themselves into a program where people, you make 40, 50, 60,000 a year, that they'll take care of it, because only one rent should only pay the rent. one paycheck should only pay the rent, but now you got 4 paychecks has to. But it all depends on what type of education you have, what type of jobs you have, because most of the people are getting evicted as low income. You know,
Thank you. Mr. Dunning, you have 1 minute.
Housing security, food security, again, these are questions of basic human needs. And it begs a question of what are we doing to make sure that especially people who are from here, who live here, are able to stay here and have those basic needs met. When it comes to housing in California, we have a shortage of 2.5 million affordable housing units. And in Richmond, we're looking at thousands fewer than we really need to make ends meet for everybody. So from a fundamental kind of practical standpoint, in addition to the emergency vouchers and doing whatever we can to get people sheltered, from a long-term vision standpoint, we need to be really building more homes. We need high density housing, city center, near public transit. And we need to be working with developers to make that happen. Lately, our policy has been not conducive to that. And so I would do everything I can to get us working together more effectively.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, when we say more affordable housing, the question is affordable for whom? There isn't affordable housing for people in Richmond. And we do need to build more housing, but it needs to be low-income housing, and it also needs to be workforce housing. Affordable housing, as defined, is for people with a lot of money. I mean, and that's another reason why we need to pass Measure P, because we need to make sure that the rents don't increase to the point where people are being displaced from their homes, because higher rents increase homelessness, they increase displacement. And aside from that, you can see a lot of if you go through Richmond, you can see a lot of empty houses. So the question is, why are these houses empty when there's so many people that are homeless?
That's time.
Thank you, candidates. I'll pass it to Shayla.
Thank you so much for the Q&A part. We were collecting some questions from chat. Since we have time, I will go ahead and ask the questions that was put into chat. One is, someone wrote that they would be interested in knowing if the candidates for mayor would agree to lowering the voting age, and explain why. So I'll pass it to Mark for a 1 minute response.
well, how low? Well, actually, the reason why I have laws on voting age, because you people pre-18 are not really mature enough to know what's going on in life. It's a proven fact. Before it was 21, because like the older you get, the more experience you have in life. I mean, when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you don't have that much experience in life. You really don't know what's going on. You're more concerned about going out and being with your friends and partying and working on cars and chasing girls and stuff like that. Okay. So that's why, because actually you people, the young people are not mature enough to realize what's going on with our country. I mean, you have the right to vote. I mean, this is serious stuff. When you vote for people, you better make sure that they're going to honor the laws and the Constitution that they said that there was going to be. Now, you don't want to put a bunch of radicals in there that's going to implement their own type of government. I mean, you people, some of you people are going to put people in there 18, 19 years old. They have no experience in life.
Thank you, Mr. Wasberg. That's your time. Mr. Dunning, same question, 1 minute to respond.
How do I put this? When in our last presidential election, there's a lot of discussion in my household, a lot of concern. And I was actually really impressed with my 6-year-old. She was 6 or 7 at the time, but she was able to conceptualize. And frankly, sometimes I think my kids have better decision-making ability than a lot of adults I know. Now, with that said, voting is a very serious responsibility. I wish all the adults in our society who are registered or eligible to register would take that seriously. So we need to look at the fact that the quality of the outcome is dependent on the quality of the process used to get there. And right now, the voting process in our country, I don't think is nearly as good as it could be. Could having younger people involved help? I'm not sure. I think that's something we should look into. I think it'd be a great topic for a high school speech contest, and I'd love to hear some of the arguments made.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Vice Mayor, same question, 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, if maturity were the standard that we measured people's ability to vote, I'm not sure what age that would be, because many people my age aren't informed enough to make a informed decision on what's going on. I have a lot of people asking me, what is that? What does that mean? And some candidates accuse voters for being misled. But being an elementary school teacher, I have had students who actually had me think deeper about issues by the questions they asked me. So critical thinking is something that we need to teach our students at an early age. And what better subject than the governance of our country to hone their critical skills on?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Another question is, there's a huge disconnect between the school district and the city of Richmond. How would you bridge that divide as mayor? Mr. Wasberg, 1 minute to respond.
Well, I would do everything I can to promote education. One thing on education, you got to bring everybody together. The school districts are going to have to start paying the teachers more, and they're going to have to start getting serious by teaching these young kids. When I was in high school, we was most concerned about going out and partying and chasing girls and so forth, But nowadays, you have to really get serious on getting a good education, because the job market has changed so much that you just can't walk out of high school and start working at a factory. Those days are over. It's going to take parents. It's going to take mentors. It's going to take the federal, state, and the county to all get together and start pumping more money into the system. I mean, education is so easy. I mean, I don't know why you young kids are having so much problems. I went to 2 + 2 all the way to basic trigonometry. It was a breeze for me. And I just said myself, okay,
Thank
I
you,
should have
Mr.
did this in
Wasberg.
high school.
Mr. Dunning?
So I think everybody knows that the West Contra Costa County School District is the authority over our schools. And nevertheless, with that said, I do believe we can partner more effectively with them. I'm not sure how much we can do really inside the walls of the schools. Like I said earlier, maybe more volunteerism, and to the extent that we can champion that through our city, great. But I think there are some other practical things we could do, like school safety, considering that many of our students are walking to and from school. Is that a safe route? Is it a safe environment? I've had many people talk to me about, why don't we have speed bumps next to all schools? Like that, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? There are schools around here that don't even have sidewalks next to them. So when you think about the purpose of a city and the types of things that we ought to be looking out for, that's a basic one. So we ought to partner with schools on that. We also ought to partner on after-school programs and transportation to and from. There's a lot of things we could do to facilitate more interaction. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor, 1 minute.
As an elementary school teacher, I realize that a lot of interactions. Well, what my students brought to class came from their home life, came from the community that they were in. And a lot of schools don't have parks. And so I worked with the school district as a council member to create a usage of parks with schools. And somehow that fell by the wayside, and we're working on that again to make sure that the schools can use the parks. But yeah, infrastructure is important. And another thing, when they were talking about closing Kennedy several years ago, the city of Richmond didn't donate, we gave the school district $3 million to keep Kennedy open.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I want to pull a question from our Facebook chat because we are live on Facebook. How do schools reflect the community, or does the community reflect the schools? So it's more of a reflection question. Mr. Wasberg?
Well, actually, if you live in a bad part of town, mostly you're going to have a hard time getting educated. If you live in a good part of town, you're going to have a good, successful education. That's a proven fact. You take people in the Iron Triangle, South Side, North Richmond. I don't know if they have real difficulties going to school and getting educated, but you got people up at De Anza, up in the Annex. Most likely these people are going to be more successful, because down the Iron Triangle, the South Side, you have one of the highest crime rates here in Richmond, because I know I was out there for 6 years filming this stuff. I mean, it's also going to take everybody get together and start helping these young kids that live in the poor part of town to start realizing how important it is to get an education. Some of them out there at 16 years old, out there being gangbangers, out there committing, selling drugs, AK-47, 16-year-old was arrested with an AK-47. I had it all on film. And it's going to take a lot of people to get together.
That's time. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Dunning, same question.
Several years ago, 10 years ago, I had the honor and the privilege of working with Congressman John Lewis. He was a mentor in work that I was doing on race relations in the US. And I bring that up because during that time, I met a woman by the name of Ruby Bridges. Some of you might know who that is. And she's famous in our country for being one of the first children, African-American children, to integrate public schools. And that was under the National Guard military arm, to allow it to happen. Today, it ought to be a privilege to be in an integrated school. And I feel that it is for my children. I'm proud that my little girls go to a school that is indeed a reflection of our community, which in the neighborhood where I live in the center of Richmond, it's very diverse. And you look at this class picture and it's a reflection of our block. And I believe that's the way it ought to be. I don't think it's that way everywhere. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think the question is, from neighborhood to neighborhood, it either is or it isn't.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Wow, that was such a amazing question for several reasons, because when we talk about reflecting, I think it works both ways, because the schools are composed of people from the community. So the students bring their home, their outside experience to the school, and then together they interact and create something new. And that new creation of being together in a isolated environment apart from the outside creates something, a mindset that reflects back to the community. So it's a circle that keeps going round and round. And hopefully this reflection gets better and better as we work together and begin to understand each other and what our needs are and what our dreams are and where we see ourselves going.
Thank you,
I-
Vice Mayor. That's time. Sorry about that. So we're gonna do one more question. There are multiple questions still coming in from chat, but I want to allow our candidates to have time for closing statements. So this question actually came up multiple times. The question is, how will you support the arts in Richmond? There's a lot of diverse talent in Richmond. How do we encourage and support our artists? I'll turn it over to Mr. Wasberg.
You hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Look, I'm a filmmaker, actor, TV talk show host. I favor the arts 100%. I mean, it gives the kids the ability to express themselves, and who knows, you might make it to Hollywood. Because, like I said, when I was in that movie, I said my name was right next to Mark Wahlberg. There's a list in Hollywood. It was right next to Mark Wahlberg, and I tell you, I feel so proud. I would have, I would try to get a nonprofits involved in getting these kids into the arts, because there's a lot of talent out there, and there's people don't really know they have that talent until they start working with it. You see? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Yeah, just go ahead and do it. I became a film editor. I edit movies. I do my own TV show. I mean, it's just amazing what a person could do once they know what they could do into the arts, dancing and singing, and even get into filmmaking. I'm for all, getting
Thank you,
nonprofits
Mr.
involved.
Wasberg. That's time. I'll pass it over to Mr. Dunning.
We have a number of really remarkable programs in Richmond. Actually, I'm really proud of the Richmond Art Center, East Bay Center for Performing Arts. My children have utilized both of those programs. And then there's things for older youth. There's, Rise has some really awesome, film and music production facilities. We have Rich City Studios. I recently went to a performance by some folks that have been developing their trade, singing, playing various instruments and whatnot. So there's actually a pretty vibrant art scene. And then you look around, just walk or ride your bike or drive around Richmond, and you'll see some really cool murals all over town. I think there's a really vibrant art movement here, and I think that's something to be proud of. And if anything, let's just keep doing it and get more people involved. Maybe there's ways we can provide grants, and also back to the practical level, let's make sure our schools have access to these so kids can actually get to them, maybe without needing their parents.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. And last but not least, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I believe that arts are the door to our imagination, and our imagination is what we need to cultivate most in order to be innovative and to move forward. One of the things that I really appreciate about the Greenway is the artist wall. I'm sure all of you know about it, where there's sections that are devoted to mural artists, graffiti artists, and you take turns and put something up there. I go there periodically to see what new stuff is there, but we need to lower art classroom sizes, and we need to offer more art classes in our school, and make that part of the curriculum as opposed to an additive. We also need to allow students to explore the neighborhood and to discover the neighborhood in an artistic way.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm sorry, that's time. I will now thank you all for the responses. Thank you all to our audience for the questions that you sent through Facebook Live and through Zoom chat. I will now pass it over to Carlos to wrap us up with closing statements.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you for respecting our rules and respecting the times we've set. I will start closing statements. Mark Wasberg, go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I got a message to all you young people out there. Education is the key to success. And when I was out there filming the violence, I filmed a 16-year-old boy being dead. Terrence Kelly was murdered. Yet I filmed the police arresting a 16-year-old boy with an AK-47. So you kids out there is going to have to start putting away these black hoodies, start being respectable, put your pants up, and start getting educated. And you're going to have to start getting out of this rap stuff, because this rap music ain't nothing but hate and murder. That's all it is. And the people that's really suffering is the African Americans. Because I've been there for 6 years. I was with these people filming the violence. But like I say, you keep telling these people, sometimes it goes the one ear and out the other. It's not cool. It's cool to be a nerd. There's no problem being a nerd. You try to do the best you can in school. Education right now is so easy to do. But the problem is you're going to have to get out of this gangster stuff. Do not hang around with these criminals, because they will shoot you dead. You had two brothers were murdered out in Oakland, just at a party. These gangsters are not messing around people. You need to stay away from these people. You need to start being respectable, getting away, putting your hoodies away, start putting up your pants, and start hitting the books. Because I'll tell you, you're going to be in big trouble when you get out of high school. This is no joke. All right? Because like I say, I was trying to get a program to get together with the churches to start going into the schools and start showing my documentary. Because I'll guarantee you, once you see my documentary, you're going to think twice of going out there and being a criminal. Because these gangsters ain't playing, people. They will shoot you dead in a heartbeat. They have no mercy. Matter of fact, just a couple weeks ago, I filmed the aftermath of the.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Walker. Next, Shawn Dunning, closing statement, 2 minutes.
Thanks again for having us this evening. This has been a really unique conversation. I'd like to do more of this, and any opportunity there is to get together, especially with young people, I'm all in. So please invite me, win or lose in this election. I'd like to really focus on the notion of community. And when it comes to solving the challenges that we face, really at the end of the day, we are all in this together. We're not coming from the same places. We're not coming from the same privilege. We don't all have the same opportunity. And yet here we are, 116,000 people from all walks of life in this little old place called Richmond, California. Personally, I'd like to see us become a shining example for the country to follow. And I think there's a lot of ways we could do that. I didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier. I was thinking maybe some questions would come up, but my career in conflict resolution actually started in a program called VORP, which stands for Victim Offender Reconciliation. And this was really my introduction to conflict resolution and mediation, when the perpetrator, a young man, about 12 or 14 years old, who had thrown a rock through the windshield of someone's car, was caught by the police, not sent off to jail. And I'm glad he wasn't, because I want to tell you how the story ends. After that victim, the guy who owned the truck and this kid who threw the rock came together, were able to meet with mediation. They were able to reconcile. And they, on their own, came up with a plan where that young man mowed this guy's lawn every weekend, all summer long, to pay off that windshield. And in the process, the neighbors hired that kid to mow their lawns. And do you think the kid threw any rocks through any more windshields? No. And more importantly, there was genuine community and relationship built, that at the end of the day, it was really about looking out for each other. That's what I want to see for Richmond, and that's why I'm running for mayor. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. Vice Mayor, you got 2 minutes closing statement.
Thank you. I went to a poetry reading for a bookwarming, and I read the poems, and there was this one poem that I thought, what garbage. But then at the reading, when I heard the author read it, I had chills all over my body. And I realized that what's on paper is just words on paper, and it needs to be put into action so that people will know what reality is all about. And this forum has shown all of us that whatever age you are, the youth who put this together, you're ready to vote. In fact, you're more ready to vote than a lot of adults that I know. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done here. It's been fantastic. And I hope that you will take this information and information from all sources, evaluate them, consider them, and vote for the person that you believe reflects your values. Because in the end, this is about values. It's more about values than it is about policy, because policy comes from the values that you show. I believe in restorative justice. I believe in a transition from fossil fuels. I believe that we're actually on the verge of extinction if we don't change our culture to move away from fossil fuels to renewables, to start thinking about how we can support ourselves as a community and not have to rely on this vast food chain. I see that my time's up. I wanted to go on, but I'll
Thank
honor
you.
the rules.
I'll pass it to the youth now to get the last words for the forum.
All right, thank y'all, man. Thank y'all for having me here, man. Good night, man.
Thank all the candidates. Thank all you.
I will pass it to Shayla to close us out.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Brian N. and Brian G. You all are amazing. And thanks again for stepping up to lead this candidates forum. I think it's very important that we hear from our young people. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. This has been amazing. Again, thank you all to our audience who sent in hearts, likes, who shared us on Facebook, who sent in questions. You all are amazing. Thank you for supporting Safe Return Project. I want to take the time now to thank our candidates for their participation tonight and for their willingness to run for this very important race. Good luck to you all. I would also like to thank once again our young people, Contra Costa Immigrant Rights Alliance, Richmond Our Power Coalition, Reimagine Richmond, and Healthy Contra Costa, who has been helping us tremendously with tech and Zoom and chats. I appreciate you all. And that's our time. Again, thank you so much. Oh, don't forget to, we have two more forums in our series. Next week, Monday, 6 p.m. and Friday, 6 p.m. There is a link. I think somebody may be dropping it in the chat. Feel free to join us. Monday is going to be the Richmond City Council race. And then Friday will be the Board of Supervisor in the West County, Lord Jesus, I think it's the school board. Sorry about that. Sorry, so much going on. So feel free to please register, share the link, invite a friend, and don't forget to vote November 8th. Thank you all.
Thank you.